It's my brother right here from day one. We used to wake up and, I mean, damn, pause, but like, check this out.
Moved to New York City, and I lived with Sean Puffy Combs for a year.
That's the crazy thing.
Hold on tight, because this story is about to get even messier, with Usher stepping into the spotlight in a way none of us saw coming. For years, Usher has been celebrated as one of the most iconic voices in R&B, a true legend who helped define an entire genre with his smooth vocals and undeniable charisma. But what if the glitz and glamour of his rise to fame hid something much darker? What if the very foundation of his success was built on a web of manipulation, exploitation, and betrayal? That's exactly what's being exposed as Usher's past ties to Diddy come under scrutiny in connection to one of the most explosive trials in entertainment history.
Right?
Nah, not really. But hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle.
Let's rewind to the early 1990s, a time when Usher was just a teenager with a dream. He was sent to live under the mentorship of none other than Sean Diddy Combs, then one of the most powerful names in the music industry. On paper, it sounded like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Who wouldn't want to be mentored by a mogul with an empire of chart-topping hits? But behind closed doors, Usher has hinted at an entirely different story, one that's far from the glossy image Diddy sold to the world. Over the years, Usher has dropped breadcrumbs about his time with Diddy, and let's just say the picture he paints is anything but wholesome. In a now infamous interview, Usher described his time at what was casually referred to as Flavor Camp, a supposed crash course in learning the ropes of the industry. But the details he shared were anything but professional. According to Usher, he was exposed to a world of excess, a lifestyle that no teenager should have been anywhere near. Imagine being barely old enough to vote, let alone understand the full scope of what you're witnessing, and being thrown into an environment where boundaries seemed to evaporate. Usher himself called it wild and crazy, carefully choosing his words, but the undertone was clear. Something wasn't right.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that. What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place, and I didn't necessarily understand it.
And here's where it gets even more unsettling. Usher has alluded to moments that left him confused and uncomfortable, moments that, looking back, seem less like mentorship and more like calculated grooming. He shared stories of being surrounded by high-profile figures, witnessing behavior that he admitted he couldn't fully process at the time. I didn't understand what I was even looking at. He once said, a haunting line that feels heavier with every new revelation about Diddy's alleged actions. The glamorous parties, the lavish trips, the constant exposure to a world of indulgence. It wasn't just overwhelming, it was deeply inappropriate for someone so young. But here's the kicker. This wasn't just about exposure. There are whispers, faint but growing louder, suggesting that Usher's involvement went far deeper than anyone could have imagined.
You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
And it doesn't stop there. If you think Usher's story is shocking, wait until you hear what's happening now. He's reportedly been called to testify against Diddy in the upcoming trial, and insiders are saying his testimony could be the nail in the coffin for the embattled mogul. Why? Because Usher isn't just any witness. He's someone who was there, who lived through it, and who could finally pull back the curtain on what really went down during his formative years under Diddy's wing. And let's not forget, Usher isn't the only one stepping forward. The list of witnesses is growing by the day, each adding more fuel to a fire that's already blazing out of control.
Back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes, you know what I'm saying, before pause was invented.
What's particularly damning about Usher's potential testimony is the sheer weight of his credibility. This isn't some disgruntled former employee or a little-known figure looking for a payday. This is Usher, a global superstar with nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking out. And yet, he seems ready to tell his truth, no matter the cost. The question is, what will that truth reveal? Will it confirm the worst fears about Diddy's alleged behavior, or will it shine a light on an even darker, more insidious reality? But here's the thing, Usher's involvement isn't just about the past. It's about what his story represents. If someone as high profile and seemingly untouchable as Usher could be caught up in this web, what does that say about the industry as a whole? How many other young artists were put in similar situations, their dreams used as leverage to exploit their vulnerability? And how many more are still too afraid to come forward? silenced by the weight of power and influence. And let's not forget the role that Diddy played in shaping Usher's career. This wasn't just a casual mentorship, it was a carefully curated relationship that defined Usher's trajectory in the industry. Diddy was there at the beginning, guiding him, shaping him, and, as some would argue, controlling him. So what happens when the person who helped launch your career is the same person who may have caused you unimaginable harm? That's the question Usher might be forced to answer on the stand, and the stakes couldn't be higher.
He got on Shay Shay and he mentioned how great and how good Puff taught him and everything.
And then there's the matter of timing. Usher's decision to step forward now, at a moment when Diddy's empire is crumbling under the weight of numerous allegations, feels deliberate. It's as if he's been waiting for the right moment, biding his time until the tide turned against his former mentor. And now that it has, he's ready to speak his truth. But what will that truth reveal about the man who once claimed to be his protector, his guide, his so-called big brother? And more importantly, what will it reveal about an industry that allowed this to happen, turning a blind eye to the warning signs and enabling a culture of silence?
What'd they do to him? Because there's a lot of speculation out there, but nobody, I mean, I've heard things, but what did they really do to him?
As the trial looms closer, the anticipation around Usher's testimony is reaching a fever pitch. Will he confirm the rumors that have swirled for years, or will he unveil new details that will send shockwaves through the industry? One thing is certain, whatever he says, it's going to be explosive. Because Usher isn't just a witness, he's a symbol of everything that's at stake in this case. His story, his truth, could be the key to unraveling a scandal that has already shaken the music world to its core. But just when you think you've heard it all, there's more. The trial isn't just about allegations, it's about power, influence, and the lengths people will go to protect their empire. And if you think Usher's testimony is the end of the story, think again. Because this case is about to take a turn that no one saw coming, pulling back the curtain on secrets that have been buried for far too long.
Sure, you know, yeah, Justin Bieber has been getting this out in different ways. You know, you could see it in his music and just what he's been trying to say.
And just like that, the stage is set for one of the most chaotic courtroom battles in recent memory. But don't think for a second that Diddy is going down without a fight. Oh no. The man who built an empire on charm and invincibility isn't ready to lose his crown even as the walls close in. His legal team, a revolving door of high-powered attorneys who are either jumping ship or being pulled into the chaos, is scrambling to salvage what little defense they have left. And trust us, things aren't looking good.
We'll take Justin Bieber. A grown man take Justin Bieber when he was young to a vacation, a romantic vacation, showing pictures on it.
Let's start with the so-called mental capacity argument, a desperate Hail Mary that Diddy's team is banking on to somehow sway the jury. They've lined up a psychiatrist to testify that Diddy's state of mind was impaired during key incidents. The claim? That his judgment was so clouded by his own lifestyle that he couldn't possibly have been in control of his actions. It's the kind of argument that makes you raise an eyebrow and ask, seriously? That's the best they've got? But here's the kicker. This strategy isn't just risky, it's enraging for the prosecution. They've already filed motions to block this testimony, calling it a cheap attempt to redirect blame and undermine the gravity of the accusations. And honestly, they're not wrong. Trying to paint himself as a victim of his own choices doesn't exactly scream accountability, does it? But wait, it gets worse. The defense is also attempting to suppress critical evidence, including the infamous freak-off tapes that reportedly show the kind of behavior that could single-handedly sink Diddy's case. These aren't just any recordings. They're said to be explicit, damning, and impossible to explain away. And yet, Diddy's team is arguing that these tapes were obtained illegally, that search warrants were mishandled, and that the footage itself has been tampered with. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, claiming the original tapes no longer exist and accusing media outlets like CNN of editing the copies to make Diddy look worse. It's a bold move, sure, but also a transparent one. The judge has already ruled that this evidence is admissible, which means those tapes are likely going to be played in court. Can you imagine the impact of that? A jury sitting there watching the footage, seeing with their own eyes what Diddy's been accused of. It's the kind of evidence that doesn't just speak, it screams.
No, I'm not surprised by the ruling because, as she cited in her order, there are very serious allegations about the danger that he potentially poses to other witnesses and the public at large. There are allegations that he has, been violent with others. He's also attempted to allegedly intimidate other witnesses and still contact witnesses while incarcerated.
And speaking of screaming, let's talk about the witnesses. Cassie Ventura, the woman at the center of this storm, is gearing up to take the stand. Her testimony alone could tip the scales, but she's not the only one. Cassie's involvement in the case is far more central than anyone initially anticipated. Rolling Stone has revealed that she is listed as Victim 1 in the indictment, a designation that underscores her significance in the prosecution's case. Her lawsuit, which was settled almost immediately after it was filed, detailed years of alleged manipulation and mistreatment. She claimed that Diddy not only coerced her into performing demeaning acts, but also used surveillance, intimidation, and even threats of violence to maintain control over her. And let's not forget, she's the one who lit the match that ignited this entire firestorm. Without her bravery in coming forward, it's doubtful that this case would have ever reached the courtroom.
Not buying it at all, Kana. And safety can mean a couple different things. Safety just doesn't mean free from harm of violence. Safety can also, too, means emotional and mental dynamics that could occur by Sean Combs reaching out to potential witness to get them to possibly change.
And then there's the infamous footage. Yes, that footage, which reportedly shows Diddy dragging Cassie through a hotel hallway in 2016. The video, taken from hotel surveillance and later leaked to CNN, has become a pivotal piece of evidence. Prosecutors argue it proves a pattern of behavior, a man who wielded power not just to control, but to dominate and degrade. Diddy's defense team has tried to downplay the significance of the video, arguing it was taken out of context, but let's be real. How do you explain away something that visceral? It's not just an image, it's a moment frozen in time. One that speaks volumes without a single word being uttered.
Both sides in the Sean Diddy Combs case have until today to give answers for how the music mogul has been communicating from jail. Combs appearing in court last Friday seeking bail while he awaits trial. He's been held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn since September.
But Cassie's lawsuit also revealed something even more chilling. The alleged freak-offs were meticulously planned events. According to her claims, these weren't spur-of-the-moment parties. They were orchestrated down to the last detail. Rooms were booked, supplies were ordered, and participants were flown in from across the country, all under the guise of work trips. Cassie alleged that she was forced to recruit others for these gatherings, adding yet another layer of trauma to an already harrowing experience. This level of planning isn't just disturbing, it's calculated. It paints a picture of someone who didn't just abuse power, but weaponize it in ways that are almost unimaginable. Other alleged victims, identified only by pseudonyms for their protection, are also set to testify. And then there's Usher, whose presence in this trial is a bombshell all by itself. His connection to Diddy, his firsthand experiences, and his willingness to speak out could be the final nail in the coffin. But don't overlook the fact that his testimony also opens a Pandora's box of questions about how many others might have been affected. If someone as high profile as Usher has a story to tell, what about the countless others who might never get their chance?
The defense denying these claims and is pushing for his release under strict conditions, including a $50 million bond and 24/7 monitoring at a secured Manhattan apartment. There will be a hearing today where both sides will have a chance to clarify exactly how Combs has been connecting with the world outside his jail cell.
And yet, Diddy's team isn't just fighting the prosecution, they're waging a war on public perception. They've claimed that this entire case is a targeted attack on a successful black man, accusing the legal system of racial bias and framing the trial as a takedown of an icon. It's a narrative designed to stir outrage and rally support, but it's also incredibly divisive. On one hand, the argument taps into real issues of systemic inequality. On the other, it feels like a smokescreen, a way to distract from the actual allegations and shift the focus to something bigger than the man at the center of it all. But here's the reality. No amount of spin can erase the mountain of evidence piling up against Diddy. The allegations, the tapes, the witnesses, they're all converging in a way that's impossible to ignore.
I'm not surprised with the decision. I'm surprised that Judge Subramanian entertained it. He held a 2-hour hearing, which we were covering live, and he issued a 5-page written order. Most other judges, including the 2 previous judges, to consider this issue, summarily denied the bail motion. I think a lot of it stems from Judge Subramanian being a newer judge. This is a Biden appointee.
And let's not forget the chaos behind the scenes. Diddy's legal team is in shambles, with one attorney after another stepping down or being replaced. His longtime law firm, a powerhouse in the entertainment world, dropped him as a client after decades of representing him. The rumor? Another high-profile client, reportedly Lady Gaga, threatened to leave the firm unless they cut ties with Diddy. Whether that's true or not, the optics are devastating. When even your own lawyers are running for the hills, what does that say about your chances in court? The trial itself is shaping up to be a spectacle unlike anything we've seen before. Jury selection is just around the corner, and you can bet that both sides are bracing for a battle. The prosecution wants jurors who can stomach the graphic evidence and see through Diddy's defense strategies. The defense, meanwhile, is likely looking for anyone who might buy into their narrative of victimhood and persecution. It's a high-stakes chess game, and every move matters. And yet, for all the legal wrangling, the real story here is about power, how it's wielded, how it's abused, and how far people will go to protect it. Diddy built an empire by projecting an image of success, charm, and untouchability. But now that empire is crumbling, piece by piece, as the truth comes to light. The question is, how much damage will be done before it's all over? And more importantly, who else will be caught in the fallout?
Separated from the general population, right? He's with, or was with, Sam Bankman-Fried at least. And the irony there is that's someone who was granted bail, tried to tamper with witnesses, so the judge revoked his bail. So that just goes to show how these federal judges feel about witness tampering before trial.
Because make no mistake, this isn't just about Diddy. This trial is pulling back the curtain on an industry that has long operated in the shadows. An industry where power and influence often come at the expense of human decency. The allegations, the evidence, the testimonies, they're all part of a larger reckoning, one that could have far-reaching implications for everyone involved. And as we inch closer to the trial, the tension is only going to escalate. What will the jury see? What will they hear? And what will it mean for a man who once seemed untouchable? So what do you think? Is Diddy's empire about to collapse under the weight of its own secrets, or will his defense team find a way to turn the tide? Do you believe the allegations, or are you waiting to see what comes out in court? Let us know your thoughts down below, and trust us, this is just the beginning. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over.